welcome to another great video. We had a fantastic questioner coming in from
Mhm.
Albert, and this is something we get taught about all the time. Albert asked, I'm 60, he had 500,000 of investments. He wants to know if he's at a similar level of everyone else. How do I compare effectively? Do I have more money than my neighbors? Do I have less money? Very common type of question, and we're going to go through some statistics to help answer that question.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, that's the one question everybody wants to follow. Am I comparatively to everybody else? Am I good? Is the neighbor next door richer than I am? What you want to do is find out what your average household net worth is in Canada, and that's what this study's done. I mean, this is from Statistics Canada, blueprintfinancial.ca. If you take a look, as you've seen, average household net worth in Canada has increased over the years. Back in 2020, during the pandemic, it was a little over 750,000. As of last year, it was a little over $1 million. Now, again, this is average net worth. We're not talking just strictly the investment side, but as you can see, it has its fluctuations and it bases it on previous years. 2022 is over $1 million. 2023 was under $1 million. But again, in 2022, we had more of a decline in all markets, whether that was equity, whether it was bond scenario. So that will have an influence on your 23, also inflation and other numbers along those lines.
Yeah, and that's household. So this isn't per
Mhm.
individual. This is per household. So often you have more than one people in a household. So keep that in mind. And then what is the net worth comprised of? You kind of hinted at it there. It's not just investments. It does include real estate. You can see the data here from the same sources. And how much of that net worth is actually real estate? Well, it's over half, effectively, what it is. You can see it
Mhm.
fluctuates year to year. Some years higher, some years lower, as real estate prices go up and values of stocks and bonds go down or up.
Yes.
That ratio will adjust, but effectively, on average in Canada, the average household has a net worth over $1 million, and a little over half of that is because of the real estate. We will mention, if you are thinking of retirement as your goal, you don't need a home to
No,
retire.
not at
You
all.
could easily be a good saver. You could have a pension through work. There's other ways you can certainly achieve that goal. However, for most Canadians, you can see average household net worth over a million, and roughly 52% of that, according to the latest mark, is in fact real estate. A few other details here. Also, what impacts it? Well, one is going to be age.
Yeah, I mean, depending on where you are in your lifestyle, you are going to have more money at certain times in your life than you are at other times. And as we can see from this average net worth in Canada, as you go up with age, it tends to increase. So if you're under 30, as you can see from 2023 to 2024, it went up a little bit, but you're looking at 300 plus thousand. By the time you get into your mid 30s and early 40s, you're at 600. By the time you get to that 55, 64 range, now you're 1.5 million, almost 1.6 million.
Yeah.
And then what we see is after 65, that net worth goes down. Now, a lot of that may have to deal with the fact that what you're getting is you're starting to spend some of that money
Yeah.
into retirement. You don't have that income coming in that you did while you were working. But as you've noticed, that stuff is still continuing to increase each year going forward. Doesn't seem to really matter what bracket you're in or what age category.
Yeah, so it does tend to increase with age. That 55 to 64 is kind of like your peak earning years.
Yep.
You've got a whole career of education and skills you built up and earning lots of funds, usually in that bracket.
Mhm.
And then you start to spend some in retirement. And also, in terms of average net worth, goes up with income. No surprise
No,
here. The
not
more
at all.
money you make, likely the more money you're going to save and the more assets you're going to have. And that tends to be reflected in the data here. They looked at income. They did a ranking, highest income at the top, lowest income at the bottom, and they broke it up into fifths, what we call a quintile.
Kyle.
So you have five of them. You got the bottom group, then the one just above that, and then you have all the way up to the top. So you have the five different groups, the highest being the highest income, the lowest being the lowest income, and no surprise, the higher the income, the higher the net worth on average. Again, this is across Canada, and this is household, and you can see a couple of years there. And then an extra little point, there's actually a study done by the Parliamentary Budget Office. I think it was actually requested by a Canadian senator, and it was done in 2021. And they looked at one percenters, the mythical 1% in Canada. How much net worth do you need to be part of that group? Well, in 2021, you need over 6.3 million of net worth to be considered part of the 1% in Canada. Again, this is household net worth. That's what the study determined. Top 1%, over 6.3 million.
Yeah, and that number was in 2021, so you can imagine it's higher than that right now.
Yeah,
But
we had a good question here from Albert. Before we go on with more
yes.
data, if you have a question, how do they hold us?
You go to chatwithclintonkevin.com. By all means, send the questions through to us if you want to know if you have more than your neighbor or whether that's going to be a relevant point for you going forward, or you have any other financial questions. Please send it off. It does come directly to Clinton and myself. We will be the ones getting back to you, so you'll get those answers as quickly as we can get it out, and hopefully we can help with your financial situation. Otherwise, besides that,
We do have a newsletter as well. There's a link in the descriptions. If you like videos like this, we have a newsletter comes out every week with similar financial planning tips. You can get them right in your inbox. Click the link and sign up for the newsletter if you like. We talked about Neighbors in the Canadian sense, but I had more money than the folks around me. Also, we can look at it in the global sense. We had some UBS data we looked at. They have a data book, wealth data book, as well as a global wealth report. Looked at some of that data to compile how Canada ranks compared to other countries.
Yeah, and basically what they're looking at is the net wealth per adult across the globe. Now, this is net worth per adult, not per household anymore that we're looking at. So there's the clarification there. And as you can see, we've ranked the top 15. Canada does make the top 15, which is nice to see, but we're on the lower half of that top 15 scenario. And again, it's divided down between the median, which is more of the middle, and the mean, which is more of the average. As we can see in the beginning, I mean, you get to Ireland, you get to Luxembourg, and you got, not much discrepancy between the two. It's sort of that scenario. When you start getting further down that list, though, when you take a look at Canada, our middle is more that 142, but when you look to the average, now you're looking more at 374, 375. And then, of course, when you get to the US at the bottom, that's probably the largest discrepancy you're going to see. And there's a variety of reasons for that.
Yeah, lots goes into that. Again, I think Iceland at the top there with 413 for the median, and the mean not much different. And you get the big discrepancy between median and mean. Usually, not always, but usually means outliers.
Yes.
So you got a couple of folks at the very top there with lots and lots of wealth, and that could certainly skew the average, but it might not have as much of an impact on a median. I imagine that's what you're seeing in countries like the US. But it gives you an idea of how Canada ranks, and that's the top 15. There's lots of countries in the world,
Big time.
many that have far, far less when it comes to the net wealth per adult, but it gives you some consideration of how we rank. Driving this all home, some considerations. Does this matter?
No. At the end of the day, whether your neighbor has more money or less money than you should not affect your retirement at all. If you're waiting until Bob has the same amount of money as you to retire, you're probably not setting your parameters correct for what your financial situation is. You've got to go with your goals. You're setting your goals that are relevant to your unique situation. We are not looking at what your neighbor's doing. We're not looking at what the average Canadian's doing. We're doing what's best for you. Your goals are going to be different than others. So that's part of it. And that always leads to the Becker Orr mantra.
You got to have a plan. So you have those unique goals, which are relevant to your specific situation, not your neighbors, and then you create a plan to achieve those. That's really the best method to do that. And your plan can have benchmarks along the way. And often when people are asking this type of comparison question, how do I rank? Really, in our experience with the driving that is, am I on track?
Yes.
Lots of ways to do that. You can look at your plan. We'll have a whole other video on the screen now about 5-minute formulas that can help you answer that question. Click on that one. We'll see you again very soon.
Take care.